Did you know you can actually make standoffs a little bit easier by making Jin jump backwards right at the start? This gives you a little bit of extra distance and therefore time to react to the first attack. For this to be working, Jin needs to be walking in the last cutscene shot. As long as he's walking in that shot, you'll want to immediately hold backwards and start spamming jump so that he jumps back right after the camera cuts to the final standoff view. If he's not walking in that last cutscene shot, then you generally won't be able to make him jump. But if you start the standoff from far away, you'll usually get him walking and this will work. You should also know that it's possible to double dip on your resolve when using the Dance of Wrath mythic ability. Dance of Wrath has a pretty long wind up before it actually begins to execute. So if your health is down, you can actually heal and use Dance of Wrath for free. This comes into play when you have low resolve, so like only the 3 needed to trigger Dance of Wrath or maybe a little bit more. See, when you trigger Dance of Wrath, the animation has a bit of a wind up. So in that window, you can spam heal to consume resolve like normal before it gets burned up by Dance of Wrath. But the Dance of Wrath animation has already started and it will continue to execute regardless of how much resolve you have at that point. So basically all you have to do is trigger Dance of Wrath when you have about 3 or 4 resolve, and then immediately spam heal before it starts to deal any damage. But that's not the only trick you can pull off to save resolve with a mythic ability. Heavenly Strike can also be used to close the gap during combat for free. You'd think this would waste resolve, but the resolve only actually get used if you hit an enemy with Heavenly Strike. So if you're a little distance away, you can use it to close in on an enemy without worrying about burning up extra resolve. Now, once you unlock and start playing around with each stance's charged heavy attack, you'll quickly realize that they can be kinda slow to perform. You have to first hold down the input and then release to make Jin actually do the attack. This can break up the flow of combat and sometimes put you in a bit of a vulnerable position while you're standing there waiting for the right opportunity to release the attack. So keep in mind that you really only have to hold that heavy attack button for a moment before releasing to trigger it. There's no need to hold it down for very long, and you certainly don't need to hold until Jin is standing still. You can let go just after he starts the animation of getting into his stance. But what I find even more interesting and useful is what you can do with the light attack. Of course, Jin will do a light attack when you press down on the light attack button, but if you hold it down for a moment, he'll actually also do a light attack when you release the button. So naturally, most of us are going to press the button 3 times if we want to do 3 light attacks. But you don't actually have to do that. Instead, you can press, release, press in a slightly slower, more measured tempo to get the same result. Basically, you can attack with the same speed, but you don't need to press the light attack button so fast. I kind of stumbled across this by accident, but when I started experimenting with doing light attacks this way, I noticed that it forced me to be more intentional with my button presses, preventing accidental spamming and making me execute light attacks with more precision. It also feels more fluid to me, like the animations transition more smoothly. It's another one that requires a bit of mindful practice, but I think you'll want to give it a try. And yes, it does work on both PlayStation and PC, regardless of whether you're using a controller or mouse and keyboard. Thanks to my friend Jeff Wayne for verifying on PC for me. Now, you've probably already found that you can pop smoke and perform triple assassinations with the chain assassination skills fully unlocked. But sometimes you're in a situation where you just can't get to the group of enemies you want to assassinate without alerting them, and I have a few tricks for handling that. One of them, which we covered in my mistakes video, is the fact that you can actually shoot the bow through corners and edges of objects. If you push right up against a wall and peer around the corner, your bow will basically be in the wall, but the arrow will still fire no problem. So you can nail a cheeky headshot without exposing yourself. Now, if you can find a route to an enemy, but you'd be exposed trying to sneak across the distance to them, remember that rolling is actually totally silent and reduces your visibility like crouching. So it's actually quite easy to roll up and pull off an assassination. The other thing to keep in mind with assassinations is that you can actually initiate them mid-air, which means you can jump out towards an enemy that's a little too far out of range to get the assassination on them. In the right situation, you can also use the grappling hook to swing in to close the gap. Just remember to press the jump button to release from the swing. If you press dodge, Jin will let go, but he won't get anywhere near the same forward boost as when you hit jump. Another fun way to dunk on the Mongols is kicking them off ledges with the wind stance typhoon kick. But you should also know these guys are literally the worst swimmers. If you kick them into any body of water with a bit of depth, they'll instantly drown. It doesn't even need to be from high up. They'll literally drown in a shallow pool if you kick them in. Now, to get a bit of help clearing a camp, you've probably noticed you can release imprisoned people and animals from the big cages. Problem is, you've got to stand there and hold the button to unlock the cage, and a lot of times you just don't have the time to pull that off when you're being attacked. But you can actually bust open the doors instantly by cutting the lock with your katana. You do have to land the katana swing pretty close to the lock itself to get this to work, especially on the smaller cages, but it's way faster opening cages this way to gain a few scrappy allies. I kinda prefer handling the Mongoonies myself though, and one of my favorite tricks is blasting a few of them at once with an explosive arrow. If they're relatively close together, you might hit your target's neighbors by aiming directly at one of them. But the more effective way to do this is to actually aim your shot at the ground in the middle of a group. The explosion has a larger blast radius than you'd think, so you can damage and light on fire quite a few Mongoons at once this way. But probably my favorite trick is juggling Mongies with the bow. It's definitely just for style points, but I find it so satisfying to pull off. To do this, you need to pop an enemy into the air using the Wind Stance Typhoon Kick. Then immediately aim the bow and start spamming the concentration button to trigger it as quickly as possible. So on controller, that's L2 to aim and spamming the right stick. On mouse and keyboard, by default, it's left control and C. Once you get concentration, you can go to town firing arrows at the airborne enemy. And don't worry about over-clicking concentration. You can't accidentally exit out of it by continuing to hit the button. Of course, this works much better if you have armor and/or charms equipped that extend the duration of concentration, giving you more time to fire arrows once you've got the enemy popped up. I like using the Tadayori's armor with this set of charms to maximize concentration. If you can manage to nail a headshot, the armor will extend concentration even more. It also helps a lot to do this on sloped terrain where you can get a bit of high ground on them. That way they have a little further to fall and more airtime. After I figured this out, I saw that Alex over at Boomstick Gaming figured out pretty much the same thing a few years ago when the game originally launched on PlayStation. So shout out to him for being the first to develop this trick as far as I can tell. Alex made me realize that you can also pull this off by popping enemies up with the shoulder bash, but that doesn't lift them quite as high, so it's trickier. Now, of course you know you can loot tools like kunai and smoke bombs from enemies' bodies, but with all the bodies on the ground after a fight, it's really easy to overlook the fact that each type of enemy actually drops a specific type of tool. So if you're short on something mid-fight, you can focus on a specific type of enemy to try and get what you need. All enemy types seem to have a chance to drop supplies, but kunai almost exclusively come from swordsmen. So either Ronin or the Mongols with the big two-handed sword. Those Mongols with the two short swords that throw the flash bombs also count as swordsmen, so you'll find kunai on them as well. I've also seen leaders drop kunai, but after you unlock the Way of the Flame mythic ability, they tend to drop incendiary oil instead. For smoke bombs, you'll want to go after shieldmen, so it's nice if you can include a shieldman in your chain assassinations after popping smoke to hopefully get a smoke bomb back. Of course, archers drop arrows, and spearmen seem to drop either black powder bombs or incendiary oil, again once you've unlocked the Way of the Flame. Strangely, brutes don't seem to have any specific item they drop. I pretty much only find supplies on them. But there are better ways to regain your favorite tools by getting clever with which outfits and charm combinations you pick to create builds. And I show you those along with a bunch of other really good builds in this video right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there in just a second.